Welcome in another edition of Doyel and Derek here with the IndyStar. I'm your host, Derek Schultz. The star of the show is Gregg Doyel. He has his own section at IndyStar.com, and he is the only person, I think, in the entire paper that has their own section.
Yeah, so does Let It Out. Let's not go overboard.
Well, you let it out all the time on your columns, so that actually is fitting that you have that. We've got a lot more to talk about. Obviously, finally, it's a game week, thank God, because we've done, 5 editions of this show and have yet to talk about an actual game that counts. But I think the big news that we should start with, Greg, from over the weekend, all of the quarterback news that hit the Colts. Let's start with Jacoby Brissett and the contract extension. I think a lot of people thought this was going to be an audition year, and then he gets paid if he plays well. If he doesn't play well, you take the comp pick, you let Jacoby Brissett walk. But looking at the parameters of this extension, I think the deal makes a lot of sense for both sides. But what was your reaction when the news broke? What was it, like 5 o'clock on a beautiful Labor Day about Brissett and the contract?
My reaction was, wow, this Andrew Luck thing just got real. I mean, they acquired Brian Hoyer the day before and gave him 3 years, and then they lock up Jacoby for 2. Like, okay, this is – I mean, obviously it was real, but that was my first reaction is, holy cow, Andrew Luck's not coming back, is he? And not that I thought he was, but my word. The other reaction I had was, are you kidding me, Jacoby? You don't have an agent? On the one hand, admirable. You don't have to give away what percentage you have to give away, and good for you for taking care of your money. On the other hand, I just can't believe that whatever deal he got was the best deal he was going to get. I just can't believe it. I can't believe you would do that. Now, maybe Ballard and those guys would just, they're going to give you this much whether you have an agent or not. I don't know, but Lord knows I wouldn't want to be negotiating a $30 million contract without an agent. Are you kidding me?
I know, it's crazy. And Brissett is going to make, even if he wasn't good this year, he was going to make a substantial raise from $2 million, which is what he was going to make at the end of his rookie deal. But that said, Greg, I think there's something about the second you put pen to paper, you are $20 million richer. It's $20 million guaranteed. So the second he signs his name, there's some security with that, right? Jacoby Brissett's not planning to stink up the joint or anything like that. I don't think any quarterback would have that mindset. But you have to think to yourself, hey, worst case scenario, I sign right here, $20 million.
Oh, he's set for life. Yeah, I don't mean to hijack this whole thing and talk about Jacoby not having an agent, but you asked me my first thought. My first thought was, holy cow, Andrew's really gone. My second thought was, he doesn't have an agent? Are you kidding me? And beyond that, it's a rather ambitious contract for the Colts. Maybe Jacoby did great because it's a lot of money to give a guy who hadn't done anything yet. Mm-hmm. But I think what this contract did, what it did, among other things, was it told the locker room, this is your guy. That what they couldn't have happened was have the backup quarterback making more than Jacoby, because Brian Hoyer was going to make more than Jacoby until Jacoby signed. So we got to tell the locker room we believe in Jacoby, and we're putting our money behind where our mouth is, and this is one of the advantages that the Colts really hadn't capitalized on until now. They have all that cap space. If Jim Irsay doesn't mind doing it, you might as well use it and send the message to the locker room that this guy matters. Follow this guy because he's legit. Long term is 2 years, but he's legit for more than just an emergency measure. At the same time, the deal is just short enough that if Jacoby does stink up the joint, he won't.
So
be
what?
Here.
Yeah, so right, you absorb most of the cap. I haven't seen the structure yet. You absorb most of the $20 million probably on the 2019 cap. So if you have to eat the deal, you have to eat the deal. I mean, he's the 19th highest paid quarterback in the league, so it's not like you're giving him $15 million. Sounds like a lot. But.
Well, good for Jacoby. You know what? The more I think about this, the Colts have been saying he's a top 20 quarterback. And you're telling me he got paid number 19?
Top 20 money.
Good for Jacoby for getting top 20 money. I guarantee you that was part of – I mean, maybe the Colts offered it. I don't know. But good for Jacoby. Maybe he did great. Maybe I need him to be my agent. Lord knows I don't do anything on my own.
I think, too, Greg, that it gives the Colts a chance to take an extended look because what if – we've talked so much about the extremes. What if Jacoby Brissett is great? What if Jacoby Brissett is terrible? What if Jacoby Brissett is just okay? And then he enters a contract year. Next spring, the Colts are in this position where what do? You have a quarterback that's still young. He just had an okay season. Do you give him a Bortles deal? Do you give him look at Dalton and Tannehill and all these quarterback contracts. These guys that were just coming off sort of okay seasons that got major money in major years, and it ended up being bad deals for those guys. So I think that this gives the Colts at least some wiggle room. If Jacoby Brissett is just okay, but they feel like there's some growth there, they know that there's another year on that contract where they can kind of take an extended look, and you don't have to use the franchise tag. So this is like franchise tagging him without actually using the franchise tag.
And the beauty of it is that we all know Jacoby well enough to know, to at least to believe that if he just, hypothetical, let's say he's the MVP of the league 2 years in a row, he's not leaving. He will not only will the Colts give him money, but he'll stay. He's not a guy that just is going to turn tail and run. Brady retiring in 2 years, but I don't know why he'd have any love for New England. It's cold up there. I mean, he's not leaving. He's the guy here, I think, if he's really good. But we ought to talk real quick about who I think might be the most, I don't know about popular, but most fan-fascinated quarterback in the organization is Chad Kelly. I mean, when Chad and things, they come and go, but everybody in this town has their moment. Miles Turner had his moment about 2 years ago. We couldn't write about him enough, and people couldn't click on Miles Turner enough. And I can't. There's been a couple of examples of these, but the worm always turns. And I'm always the last one to know because I'll write one more column on whoever hot name of the week is and realize, oh, it just ended. Okay, the run's over. Sabonis had a run there for a while too. Anyway, so Chad Kelly's on that run. He's the hot guy, and they gave Brian Hoyer 3 years and all that money. What does that? I mean, Chad, what does that say about? I thought he was really good. He's not beating out Brissett, but I thought he was really good.
I thought he was really good too. I love his moxie. That attitude, I think, that has actually gotten him in trouble in the past, helps him on the field. But that said, Greg, I think this Hoyer deal was more about Brissett than it was about Kelly. Don't you kind of think this is sort of like, I know it's a different regime, this is sort of like Hasselbeck and Luck all over again,
I was
right?
about to say, so that'll be his Hasselbeck, huh?
I mean, that's what I think.
Yeah.
Ryan Grigson didn't do a lot of good things, but one good thing that they did was bring in Hasselbeck, because I really do think that helped Luck, and he kept that 2015 season afloat. I know they missed the playoffs and they ended up 8-8, but Hasselbeck really kind of kept them afloat during there, and he was a great teammate. He was well-liked in the locker room. Hoyer is not the caliber of player that Hasselbeck was at his peak, but Hoyer is lauded for being a great teammate. Tom Brady loved him for whatever that's worth. He's started games for, umpteen different NFL teams. I think it makes a lot of sense. I was surprised. I was like you. With the 3 years, I was a little bit surprised, but then again, it's not that big of a financial commitment, so if they feel like Kelly can be the QB2 in Hoyer's third year, you could let him go without much penalty.
Well, we also know that Hoyer was probably the most hotly coveted backup quarterback on the market around cutdown day. I mean, he was if you were a good team with real designs in the playoffs and you wanted a backup quarterback, he was the best of the bunch, clearly. So, unless he falls off a cliff this next year, if they decide Chad Kelly's our guy, he's tradable. He's got 2 years. He's locked up for decent money, so that's all good. But you're right. He's their Hasselbeck, and that makes sense because Jacoby, as smart as he is, as mature and wise as he is, and he's an old soul type guy, what you can't do is say, Jacoby at age 20, whatever you are, you're the oldest quarterback in the room. It's you, Kelly, and Philip Walker. He doesn't need to be mentoring anybody. He needs to be mentored a little bit, like any young starter would need to be.
Speaking of our guy, Philip Walker, you see he got cut loose today.
Breaks my heart.
Yeah.
Breaks my heart.
It's too bad.
And I was upset about 2 weeks ago, sitting here with you, saying that that they're probably going to keep Walker. If push comes to shove, they're going to keep Kelly over Walker. And one of these guys was born with a silver spoon in his mouth, with a great last name, with every chance, and he screwed up every chance he got, and he's still going to be here. The other guy is the exact opposite. Philip Walker is the exact opposite. Self-made guy, wonderful human being, all that. And while I'm sad for Philip today, I am sad for him. Sad for me. I mean, he's a great guy to have in the locker room. After watching Chad, really in the fourth preseason game against the Bears, I get it now. Now I get it. Like I don't like it necessarily, but I can't fault the Colts for believing in Chad Kelly because there's something there.
It's great that they feel comfortable with Walker as a scout team guy, and he's great as a practice squad guy. But that said, Greg, you need to have somebody that you feel like, worst case scenario, I could put out on the field. And you said it on the pod a couple of weeks ago that the Colts don't believe that they could legitimately put Philip Walker out there to take reps in an actual NFL game.
Yeah, it goes to show.
In a game that counts.
Right, and it shows just how good of a guy he is, that Ballard is all about depth and was telling me actually a couple weeks ago that he'll – actually, after Andrew retired – and they were stuck with Jacoby, not stuck with Jacoby. They had Jacoby and Chad Kelly suspended, and they had nobody else but Philip. Ballard told me that I'll never let this happen again. We will never be this low in quarterback depth ever again. But it does go to show that he was comfortable. That's his mindset, and yet he let Philip Walker be the third guy because that's how good of a guy Philip Walker is. He's like you can't have that guy causing you headaches. Now that they have to believe Chad Kelly will be that guy, not causing him headaches, and he hadn't caused him a headache yet. To his credit, he's done nothing wrong. I shouldn't even say yet. That implies he will. He hadn't done anything wrong here.
So you're cool with it as long as he doesn't screw up again?
Oh, I'm cool with it. After watching the way he plays, It's not just that his numbers are pretty good, and they were pretty good as preseason. Who the hell knows what that means? But the way he plays and the way he wakes up the entire stadium with the way he plays, even in a sleepy, no-juice game at all, Chad Kelly on the field, that was a happening. And a lot of it might be because he was hitting passes. He's probably going to have days where his hair's on fire like it always is, and he's going to stink, and the happening will be not fun. But when he's playing well, that's a happening.
Is this the best roster since you've come to Indianapolis? What was that, 2014 you came here?
I got here midway through 14. Yeah, the 14 roster, and I got here in midseason. I think they were 5-2, something like that. And I looked at a roster and looked at who at the time I hadn't paid all that close attention to the Colts. I mean, I knew who their best players were. I didn't know 1 through 53. I looked at their guys and looked at the size of the linebackers and how big they were and how small they were, and I couldn't believe this team was as good as it was. And everybody was telling me, it's Andrew. I mean, all the writers in town were telling me, well, Andrew's. Because I was asking everybody, why are they good? I don't see it. It's Andrew. And it's been Andrew for a couple of years. Last year, Darius Leonard and Quentin Nelson, but it was still Andrew and a couple other guys. This team is – I'm going to write about this later in the week. I was thinking, what do I say to preview the season for the Star? And I could write about somebody, or I could write the big picture. Here's what we can look forward to, and I'm going to do that one instead. And if I had to bet money right now, yes or no, it's a binary question, yes or no. Is that binary 1 or 2? Whatever.
It's above my pay grade.
Yeah, above my intellect. But if I had to say yes or no, are they a playoff team? Yeah, they are. Yeah, they are.
There was a little hesitation.
Oh, no, that was a dramatic pause.
Gotcha.
Dramatic pause.
Is that via winning the South?
Oh, yeah.
Because I don't think they're not going to be two playoff teams from this division, right? With where they're stacked up right now?
That is the only reason I say that, because they're in the South. And when you really think about this thing, everybody talks about how hard it is to get to the playoffs, and it's not easy. You've got to finish 1 out of 4. Mm-hmm. Whatever division you're in, and if you're in New England's division, that's over the last 15 years, that's impossible. But everybody else, just finish first out of 4. That's all you got to do. And that's not easy, but it's 1 out of 4. And given that Houston's probably the second best team in this division, I would think, or the best with the Colts, whatever, but their running back, Lamar Miller's out. Jadeveon Clowney's out. Yeah, they upgraded at left tackle. That's great. But they lost, their defense was going to carry him, I think, especially with Lamar Miller out. And they lost the bookend to J.J. Watt. So they're down. The Colts are not nearly as far down as people might think without luck. I mean, they're going to take a step back, but Brissett will be okay.
I am truly fascinated to see how this division plays out, because I think all 4 of these teams have kind of a wide range of...
Nick Foles? Who the hell knows what he's going to do?
You could talk me into Jacksonville winning it. You could talk me into Jacksonville finishing 4th. You could talk me into the Colts being a last-place team, honestly. I don't think this is a last-place roster, but if Brissett crashes and burns, I don't know if it matters how much talent's on the roster. I think you can talk me into anybody. The only team to me, Greg, that seems like I have a pretty good handle on and they're just going to be okay is Tennessee.
Right.
Everyone else to me has varying degrees of where they could end up.
Tennessee is the 8-8, give or take.
Yeah.
Or 7-9, give or take a game or two thing. But yeah, absolutely. I'm with you on that. When I said that I think the Colts are a playoff team, and a podcast is people hear what they hear, whatever. But when I write the story, I'm going to make it very, very clear, and I'll still get killed for it because people don't care. But I'm going to make it very clear that they don't look great. But in this division, I can see them winning. And if you have to pick somebody, I'd pick them. It doesn't mean that I'm going to be stunned if they go 6-10. I won't be stunned, but I do think in this bad division, they can win it.
This was, thank you, Andrew Luck Day in Indy. I think that was yesterday, right? That Joe Hogsett made that declaration.
Oh, is that why it happened?
Yeah, I believe so.
Okay.
And then there was the hashtag, thank you, Andrew Luck. But you tell me, Greg, because you get a ton of response via Twitter and listener emails, reader emails, the whole deal. I feel like there's still very much a mixed reaction. Like, even people that are cool with Andrew Luck retiring are kind of like, yeah, I'm cool with it, but I don't want to throw a parade for the guy because they feel like the exit left a lot to be desired.
I think you probably hear from on your show, and maybe everywhere else, I don't know. I'm going to guess that you hear from more hardcores than I do. Mm-hmm. I mean, I hear from the hardcores, but I hear from a wide range of people. I got, the people that read me, I write about 95-year-old war veterans who, I write about
1880s baseball players.
I attract readers.
That was interesting.
Right?
I never heard of that guy.
I tell you what, me neither. When I saw that Verlander joined one of 6 guys to throw 3 no-nos, I knew 5 of the names, didn't know the 6th. And I'm sitting on my couch watching SportsCenter in the morning like I do on my Hulu Live, and I Google Larry Corcoran, hoping there's an Indianapolis connection, hoping. And sure enough, his last season was with the Hoosiers. There's my story. So anyway, when you write the stuff that I write, the crap some would say I write, that you get a lot of readers that aren't hardcore. So the non-hardcores love Landrew. They want to thank him. They're so mad at everybody for booing. The hardcores, I'm not saying all of you hardcores booed him, but the hardcores are more like what you're saying. They're more like, can we move on? And what what did he really do? Are we going to thank him? He didn't serve the country or whatever like that. So there's a mixed thing there. I side with the folks the way I will always do this. I will side with the side that shows more heart. And this football's not it is a bottom line business, but if you're a fan, Andrew Luck's a person. And I wrote a story to thank Andrew about two of my young friends that have been in the hospital that he went and saw over the years. And you can't tell me there's no thanking Andrew Luck around here. You can't tell me that.
No, he's I don't think anybody questions him off the field. He's a great guy. And on the field, he put his body through a lot. I think we've now had the chance to kind of reflect on that. And the lacerated kidney, leading a game-winning touchdown drive in a primetime game with a lacerated kidney.
He's the reason that the Colts didn't fall off a cliff without Peyton. If you're wondering why are we thanking Andrew, how about we thank him for 2012, 13, 14?
But I just think that it's difficult, Greg, for folks to grasp how the exit was, and even stuff that doesn't even relate to Luck. Just the Andrew Luck era being viewed as what could have been instead of what it was. And I think that is what elicits the mixed feelings. He has a very interesting legacy here. We know what Peyton Manning's legacy is. We know what Reggie Wayne's legacy is. It's going to be the same 20, 25, 40, 50 years from now. With Andrew Luck, I just don't feel like there's going to be that type of legacy because you'll always keep wondering what could have been.
Oh, yeah. I think his legacy will always be the years he didn't play. That'll always be his legacy. And I got no problem with that as long as no one's expressing, disgust for him or anger. And don't get tired of me because I'm still talking about him or writing about him here or there. I don't want to hear about that. He deserves whatever kindness we're going to give him. And the people that just want to act like there's a conspiracy going on or whatever. Here's what struck me is the Colts, they signed Chad Kelly. No, they found out he was going to be suspended for the first two games back in June or something. They've known for a long time. They didn't bother looking for a new backup quarterback until 2 days after Luck retired. If they really knew Luck wasn't going to play this year, they wouldn't have waited until the 2 days after he retired to go out and start bringing in quarterbacks. They'd have been bringing him in before, quietly, and the word would have spread. So, to me, that debunks the theory right there. If they knew Luck wasn't playing, do they wait until everybody's looking for a backup quarterback to be competing with everybody else? No, they lock up somebody fast.
There's a lot to blame the Colts for, but this was a situation where I think Luck kind of strung them along, don't you?
Well, he strung them along, but I don't think it was intentional.
No, I'm not saying like in a malicious way, but
Right.
I think he was kind of wavering back and forth, and I think it was for months, not weeks, about retiring. I don't buy we've talked about this before, I'm not going to bring it up again, but I don't buy the 1 to 2 week timetable where this became a serious consideration.
It could well be that. But until he knew he couldn't play, he until you say no, the answer is yes. The unspoken
True.
no means
Yeah.
the answer is yes every step of the way until no becomes no. And he did try to give them, he to his credit, you can blame him. You look at it different ways, but to his credit, he didn't announce he wasn't going to play, the night before the first game. I'm done. I can't.
That is true.
He gave him 2 weeks, which is, not 2 months, but he gave him 2 weeks and only 2 weeks because he was trying to play through it. He was trying to be tough and just decided he couldn't do it.
And you did have Brissett waiting in the wings. People have talked about the timing being bad. I don't disagree with that, but the Colts, it's not like they were in the worst. They weren't in the position that they were in 2017 or 2011 with the Manning or Luck injuries.
If Luck announces in June that he's retiring or July he's retiring, they're not going out getting somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
They're giving it to Brissett, and they might have gotten a different backup, but I'm not sure you get a better backup than Brian Hoyer. So you look back in hindsight, the way it turned out, short of Luck announcing he's retiring after the 2019 season, after the 18 season, they're not going to do better than this.
I know you've got to get over to Colts, but I wanted to at least get a week one mention in college football-wise. Your impressions, particularly of Indiana and Purdue. Let's start with IU.
They're not the same old IU because they've never had a quarterback like this. They've had guys that put up numbers, but they've never had a guy with this arm and those feet. They've had feet with Randall L. They've had arms with Sudfeld. They've never had both. So, and he's not Michael Vick. This guy's not Vick. And somebody in the press box was saying, it's like watching Michael Vick. No, it's not. Penix isn't Vick. Michael Penix is not Vick. But
Vick was a phenomenon.
Right,
man.
right. But Penix has feet. He can run, but he can really, he's an NFL backup pro-style thrower. So I'm impressed with him, but they got to learn how to block and tackle. Their skill players are ridiculous on offense. They're awesome, but they can't block or tackle right now. So
Couldn't run very well against Ball State either. Stevie Scott really kind of labored for the yards that he did get.
If you can't open up holes against a bad, and Ball State's projected to be a bad MAC team, if you can't open up holes against them, you got no shot in the Big Ten. And that could have been a one-game blip. We'll see. You make your big improvements in week 2. As for Purdue,
what a disaster.
And it started, I hate it that it started this way, but Rondell Moore muffs that punt, and that's where it starts. and he's a great guy and a great player, and it just sucks that that's how it went down, but that's how it went down.
And Sindelar's been there for 17 years, and it kind of encapsulated his 17 years where every time he wows you, he comes back and he makes a throw where you're like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
It's the good and bad. And I just thought, Greg, man, you're up 17 points against a team that's picked to finish in the middle of the Mountain West, and you blow that lead. Can Purdue recover? Of course they can. They recovered last year. They were 0-3 last year, and they were a bowl team. But with TCU and Vandy, and you got to go at Wisconsin, at Penn State, at Iowa, at Northwestern, you can't afford to give away a game against Nevada. You just can't.
Right, in their last two games, you go back to the bowl game last year, both games have been for different reasons, just crushing to them. Now, on the bright side for Purdue, their best players, most of them are all they're
so young.
Their most talented players are Rondell Moore and a whole bunch of freshmen, true freshmen. Those guys are only going to get better. Now, I don't know if they're going to get better in 2 weeks or 2 years, but they're only going to get their arrow is pointing up. The question is how fast do they get there?
And how about David Bell? He's been nagged by that hamstring, but hey, 49-yard touchdown in his debut, not too shabby.
Yeah, Kyle Nednerp had a great tweet that David Bell 49-yard touchdown, another Friday night for him.
He's going to be a big-time player. I think we all know that in Indy. You can check out Greg on Twitter at Gregg Doyel Star, at Schultz975, Fox Sports 1260 every weekday afternoon from 3 to 7. Also check out the podcast, iHeart, Spreaker, SoundCloud, iTunes. We've got it everywhere. We will see you next week after we have an actual game to talk about, Greg.
Yay!
See ya.